All right, all right. Jack Ellison here with the Chasing Dirt podcast with a special guest today, Mike Sawchuk. Known Mike, I guess, for a number of years indirectly through LinkedIn. We've had some good conversations, and if there's anyone passionate about this job, it's Mike, and I'm looking forward to this interview. I think there's a lot of wealth and knowledge in you, Mike, and I'm looking forward to extracting a little bit out today, and hopefully, for those that know you, reinforce what they know about you. Those that don't know you, hopefully your phone will ring and we'll have some conversations. But thank you very much, Mike, first of all, for being on the show. I appreciate the opportunity to chat with you for about an hour.
It was my pleasure, Jack. Thanks for having me. And I look forward to learning more about from you and what the audience wants to know about.
Yeah.
My pleasure.
Well, I usually talk this thing off. We go into three segments. I start off with, how'd you get in the business? Then we go into what is your business now you're in, and then really get into the meat and potatoes about something related to the business of cleaning. But the first question, Mike, is how the hell did you get into the business of cleaning?
Well, I guess I could lie and say that all my life I wanted to join the professional cleaning industry, but like most people, we didn't start out that way. We didn't have this, this vision that we're going to join the professional cleaning industry, but it's like most that have been in the industry, it's a phenomenal industry. It's wholesome, a lot of great people on all sides, on the cleaning side, distribution side, manufacturing side. So I feel I'm blessed and grateful that I did get into it. 30 some odd years ago, my wife and I moved from one end of Canada to the other end and looking for, something to do. And there was an ad in the paper. Somebody said, we need somebody to come in and do a business plan for a cleaning chemical manufacturer. And that's really how I got into the industry. I helped them develop that business plan, a go-to-market plan. And from there, they said, Mike, this is good, but, talk is cheap. Could you implement all these ideas? And then from there, I was brought on board as their vice president, general manager to implement this new plan for this chemical manufacturer.
So before that, what were you doing though to kind of bring that expertise forward into kind of a new angle on the industry?
Primarily, and I would akin it to the distribution. That's why I'm very familiar with distribution. I was in a couple other industry types. The biggest one was, I was going to school. I was working as at a grocery store, and from there they wanted me to to stay with that grocery industry, and I left and joined actually the propane industry. And in that industry, I had a mentor that took me under his wing. So I had staff and then, function positions in all different areas, in the field and corporate office. And we had 100 some odd branches in Canada. Then we did an acquisition in the United States, 160 branches in the Midwest, 11 Midwest states. It was part of that whole due diligence process. So sure. I got a lot of experience on that, business to business, like the professional cleaning industry, but a different parallel, the propane industry. And I worked from, like I said, line positions, staff positions, and marketing, purchasing, refurbishing, warehousing, and then the sales side as a sales rep and regional sales manager for the different regions. So that was the biggest parallel to the cleaning industry. So when I came to the cleaning industry, I saw all those similarities. And then one thing I did realize that I said to myself, I know the business side, but I just don't really know this cleaning side.
Sure.
And I have to find myself someone, because at that time I really didn't trust the owner of the company. That they're good people, but I didn't think that they were the expertise. So I was fortunate enough to find an older gentleman. And this goes back in days of Oscar Capel. Remember that name?
Vaguely remember that
Oscar
name.
was one of those guys that did dog and pony shows to a lot of distribution, but I found a Canadian equivalent that really knew the industry, that that if you wanted to learn, they'd spend hours and hours teaching it. So then that's one thing that I do have, the ability to learn, a desire to learn. So when you combine my outside of the professional cleaning industry, you bring that with my formal education, MBA and a bachelor admin, with that desire and ability to learn, I was able to put this together. So, okay, here's where the professional cleaning industry is. And like today, it's a little bit behind other industries. Yep. And then you could use that knowledge to help fast track. Here's where we are. Here's where we're going, and here's how we could get there.
No, I find it interesting. I've dealt with, I'm sure you've dealt with hundreds, but I've dealt with, through my career, you fall in this business. You either fall into it or you're born into it, right? There's no middle ground. You either just stumble into the damn thing or you're born into it. But I found that, the good owners out there within the Jansan space, to kind of reinforce what you're saying, are telling their kids, for the most part, we want you to go out and do something for 5 years to learn a different aspect of business overall. Because I think the biggest thing you could do, and maybe you see this within your consulting business, we'll talk about that in a little bit, but people who just kind of repeat what their fathers did and what their fathers or mothers did, and they repeat that again and again. And I think there's incremental improvement every kind of generation, but having someone from that outside perspective business coming into the business saying, these are how other markets or other business units are doing business. What do you think? How can we incorporate this into the Jansan arena? Has been something I've seen kind of novel coming into the industry with some younger kids and doing some pretty creative things. And I don't know if you see that today or if you're seeing that as you consult.
Well, yeah, yes, and the statistics bear it out that the next generation, the likelihood of success decreases significantly.
Yeah,
and part of that is that maybe they come in and well, this is the way we've always done it. That old saying, and they just keep on doing it that way. And just because it worked in the past doesn't mean it's going to work today. But more importantly, there's a lot of writing out there, and people are saying that the world has changed so dramatically. Had the Great Resignation. Now within our industry, having this great shuffle is that, they may not leave the industry, but they're just moving from one school operation to another, or one BSC to another, or one distribution to another, manufacturer to another. So it's got this reshuffling. And the world in our industry is got this two things I think are happening. Number one is this convergence of the fourth industrial revolution, where you have things like moving from 4G to 5G. And what does that do for capacity and volume of transactions? And then you look at Internet of Things and machine learning, augmented learning, et cetera, what impact that's going to have. Then you look at blockchain, where that data doesn't belong to you or me, or it'll be able to share. Get all these four things converging, and I think that's going to really change how businesses are run. It doesn't matter if it's a facility or distribution, is going to be now having two focuses: customer experience and employee experience. And the parallel I draw is like having two ladders side by side. You want to climb to the roof, you've got to manage both. You're not going to succeed by just having great customer experience, and you're not going to succeed by just having good employee experience. You really need both of those. So with all that, the diversity of capturing other people, and I think you need to get people with different industry backgrounds. You need to get people from different social economic areas, and those leaders that do that, it goes back to say, Jack, it's not what you know, it's what you don't know. And all of us, there's things that we know, there's things that we don't know, but the biggest opportunity is things that we don't know that we don't know. So that diversity, I think, is going to really separate the winners from the losers. The ones that are really going to succeed, they're going to build this team of great diversity of experiences, skills, backgrounds, and just say, what can we learn from those others? Because you said it, and so correctly, sometimes we just look upon our own pond as competitors. So we get this local BSCs looking at all the other local ones. There's I'm good compared to them. Well, what to do? We need to be looking outside of that if we're going to really transform the way businesses run. And I do I believe that with this moving to CX and employee experience, with this labor shortage that we're having, moving into recession likely, those things all converging is going to the best leadership teams are going to be able to significantly disrupt the marketplace. So it could be a manufacturer, and then if you're not careful, how many are being disrupted today, or a distribution, with the acquisitions that's happening. And then, then those smaller guys, how are you going to be able to compete if they can't figure that out? So that diversity is going to continue in there and become more and more important, and which is then going to be having effective leadership, not management, but leadership is going to be critical for those that want to succeed.
I agree fully, and I think there's a moment, the smaller guys who haven't got snatched up, whether it be a manufacturer, whether it be a distributor, whether it be a contract cleaner. I think the opportunity is more than ever for these small size guys to embrace the convergence of the technology, of these variables that you talked about. I think they are able to compete at a level, I think, now that they weren't. 20 years ago, if all this convergence was going on, this consolidation was going on, it'd be very difficult to do anything because technology was not there. All these other variables were not there. But I think the opportunity with technology, I've seen companies that are $100 million companies that their technology background or backbone, if you will, is nothing compared to a company that's 10 to 20 million that is growing at a crazy, crazy, crazy clip. So that's kind of what excites me about the industry is this. I use this analogy a lot, but my former boss at Spartan Chemical, he called the Jansen industry the leading edge of low technology. And I think that's drastically changing very quickly now. And I think those who embrace it, now I'd like you to kind of what you see out there, and I want to talk about it, but those who embrace that change and that technology, whether it be a new ERP system or a workloading system or order system, or even just something as simple as, e-commerce, those who embrace those different layers and stack those properly, I think are poised to win and poised to grow. And maybe, I'd love to see your perspective on that as well.
No, you nailed it, Jack. You nailed it. Is that, there's Jack Welch said it, the CEO of GE 20 years ago. And is as relevant today, if not more relevant, for the professional cleaning industry. When the rate of change of technology outside your organization exceeds the rate of change within your organization, you will be disrupted.
Nice.
And that's what I'm getting at is that doesn't matter who you are, which part of the professional cleaning industry, you're FM or property management, you're a building service provider, you're in-house cleaning, your distribution, your manufacturer, supply, that if you're not embracing technology and beginning that process, because there's not a magic pill or magic book, read this, do that, and you're there. We need to begin, moving to digital and digitization. And that really should be looking at the process we're using. Don't just digitize or automate it. If it's wrong, you really have to drive that effectiveness. And so I wrote a couple of blogs on how to deal with change management. And that's a stress level for some, but how to implement change properly. And it really you need to start, you need to do your homework, you need to do your due diligence. But you have to have a business objective. You don't want to just implement a technology because, hey, the other guys are doing it, we'll do the same thing. So you really start with what's my biggest roadblock, hurdle, my biggest problem. That's my business objective. Let's research different technologies that could address it, pick the best product within that best technology, and have KPIs before, during implementation, after implementation to know what is getting done. And so, but technology. And a second part of that is those that are not, they are going to get disrupted, unfortunately. I don't care which part that you are. It could be a BSC or that distribution. If you're not, you're going to be left behind because those that have embraced the technology will be too far and you're not going to catch up.
And that's big or small, though, right? That's big or small. That's disruption could happen to the biggest of the big and smallest of the small.
Exactly. Right? And then there's a study from McKinsey that they had out, and I can't off the top of my head, but they were basically showing that those that were on the leading edge of driving technology change, that they have a significant impact on their profitability and cash flow versus the laggers that get left behind. And that's what's going to happen. And you're seeing some of that. You're seeing a building. This building's at 80% capacity. This building's at 50% capacity. Why? The other ones are using that technology that says when Jack comes into that office, they recognize Jack. So they're going to automatically adjust the lights, automatically adjust the blinds, automatically adjust the heat. They'll know what Jack. So it's that the COVID taught us that, hey, I'd rather work from home. Yeah. So now that people want a business, they're going to say, yeah, I'll go into the office. But if your office isn't like my home, if you're not using technology to give me that experience as if I'm working from Jack's studio there and somebody else is, guess what? You combine that with society, that people would say, I'll join a company. I joined Spartan. I'm going to be there for 20 years because you need to provide for my family. Now they say, hey, this is not giving me my own growth development. I'll leave Spartan and go join one of the other chemical manufacturers. Sure. Same. So it happens with the building. They'll say, oh, I won't go to this building, but I'll go to that building because that one is more focused on that experience. So they may have indoor air quality indicators. You walk in, you start up, you have a monitor there, then so these are the KPIs that we're measuring. You can see them track over time, so it's continuous measuring. You just feel comfortable. The same thing with the cleaning, that you actually say, this is the cleaning results, and you can see that they're going up or they're going down, et cetera. So there's using that technology to drive customer experience as well as employee experience is going to be critical. And those that don't, you're going to have that building. Is how can I survive? I just can't make any money. So it's going to be disruption on all parts, big or small. And to your point, just because you're small doesn't mean that you can't take advantage of it. The third point is mindset, Jack. Mindset. A lot of the smaller ones, they're not looking to build a business. They're looking to it's a job for them. And I see a lot of that in the smaller building service contractors, that they're just, they're like running around like chicken without a head. They're handling all the activities. And then 30 years later, they wonder why they didn't become like others, because they were treating it as a job, as opposed to managing it for that opportunity. And then saying, what do I need to do? Is very easy to get in this business as a cleaner or distribution, get some sales, you get some employees, you're there. It's that next hurdle. How do I continue profitable growth in sales? And you need both. You need to be able to grow your sales, but if you can't find and retain good people, better than your competition, then you're going to be at loss, because all of a sudden you won't be able to support that sales growth. And that's really where they need to understand. They got to grow sales. They got to grow the profit people. And then once they have that, they could start turning it into a true business. So they could manage the multiplier when they do want to sell out, that they're able to get a higher multiplier for their company than if they don't just leave it a chance.
We say it the same way, and you probably say it there in Canada as well, but working in the business versus working on the business. And it's a big difference there. People don't see that. But I love the perspective, though, you just shared. And again, a lot of great perspectives in that message you delivered there. But I think the other thing is, I've never thought of it until you said it, but people who are working from home, these Class A office towers, they can have the nicest amenities, but they're still now they're competing because of COVID. They're competing against, would I rather go home and work, or would I work in that Class A that has all these bells and whistles? I haven't thought about that being a competitive factor now. So these Class A office towers are not competing against each other. They're also competing against, Sally or Jim, who wants to stay at home and work in their home office, And
that's what I said, that whole customer experience. In that case is the office workers. And so you read these different studies, and there's one today on CMM magazine. I think it was from one of the HVAC guys, saying that the importance of indoor air quality is growing. Yeah. And so that's the biggest choice. So now the people have changed, Jack. And I think when it comes to Mike, we're having troubles finding people, or we're having trouble keeping people. And we said, guys, you just got to remember, what motivated you 5 years ago or 20 years ago when you're looking for a job is not the same what motivates people of today.
Good point.
And you can't treat people the way you want to be. Remember that old adage, Jack, treat people the way you want to be treated. That was fine 20 years ago.
Yeah.
It's no longer fine today. You can't treat people the way you want to be treated. You need to treat people the way they want to be treated. Mm-hmm. We got to get that into our mindset, that we got to understand these people. We need to meet them where they want, how they want, when they want, et cetera. Meet them the way they want to be met. So now saying that is COVID's taught us that, okay, I don't want to go into the office. And that's really, there's just a reluctance, but eventually they're going to be forced to come into the office. Now they're going to have a choice. Okay, I'm now prepared to quit this company. And that's the whole idea of this great resignation, or the great reshuffling, is saying that, Jack, if you're going to force me to come into your office here, it could be the commute, it could be those office conditions, et cetera. I'm prepared to quit. I'll stay in the industry. I'm just going to go to the competition. And that whole freedom, or that mindset, you and I probably didn't think that way. We'd be more loyal to in your case, the Spartan days, and in my case, when I was working for another chemical manufacturer, that we would say, well, no, that's what they want. That's what we're going to do. Now people are more independent. So to that point, if they're now going to go to the office that's going to give them what they want, and that's what we need to respect. They want to know what is that the indoor air quality. They're reading more about it, and they just don't want something that says, here's what it was at 6 o'clock in the morning. No, I want to know what it's 10 o'clock when the office is full capacity, or that classroom's at full capacity. So it's using technology to be able to give the employees what they want, and then clearly the management leadership has to deal with that data, that evidence-based data, to make the necessary changes to drive continuous improvements. And those that do are going to win. Those are going to be the facilities that are going to have higher occupancies. They're going to be the leaders that are going to be happy because they're running a college, university. I believe down the road, the kids are going to say, I'll go to that university because I'm reading that they are, it's higher levels of clean, healthy, and safe, or their indoor air quality, or the importance that they're putting on all that. And it's not just one or the other. You're also reading the cost of education. So people are going to be making decisions on what they feel as the level of clean, healthy, and safe of that particular facility. And we need to use technology to our advantage to be able to record it, report it, and act on it.
Let's talk about that a little bit. So we know how you got into the business and the insight right now. So it's proof that you know what the hell you're talking about. And I love the perspective. I love the angles. I love what you're saying. Your day-to-day job though, you're consulting. So what you're messaging right now is kind of the things that you're thinking about as you enter into a client. And what is your, Mike, if you look at your business, you know, you got your Sawchuk Consulting. What is it that you call your sweet spot within your consulting firm right now? What is the sweet spot for you?
Well, it's a changing sweet spot, Jack. I think what makes me different is that I didn't come up from one silo. You know, I've got 30 years experience, but I worked for chemical manufacturers, small, boutique, medium, and global ones, multinational global companies. I worked for certification boards, UL, the big red UL. I've worked for distribution. I've worked with BSCs. So I bring all those different skill sets. And like I said, strong formal education and outside the industry. But then the sweet spot that I look at is consulting, and I'm trying to move more to education, providing education, Jack. And selfishly, because when you're consulting, there's only so many hours in a day. If I could use technology to automate, so it could be, 24/7, people could get the courses, review the courses without me necessarily doing a voiceover, PowerPoint recording, or live. It's going to win. So my sweet spot typically is with if I'm working with distribution, is how to grow profitable sales, focus on profitable growth of sales and sales force effectiveness on cleaning operations, how they can improve their levels of clean, healthy, and safe at the lowest overall cost. And typically that involves investing in technology. But on the where I think there's the greatest opportunity, that's right now, unfortunately, it's only in my head, I'm not seeing the business results, is for people to assess their own, learn. If I offer a course so they could actually learn what the best-in-class cleaning operations do. So it's not product specific. It doesn't say use or brand X, brand Y, but there's a lot of great stuff out there, the ISSA and APA, et cetera, and they all focus typically on product procedure, protocols, and policies. You go to Spartan, they got a lot of great stuff on the 4 Ps.
Sure.
And I use an analogy of a vehicle. You say, Jack, if you just close your eyes and try to picture your car, now do it. Close your eyes and picture your car. What you first comes to mind, the color, the shape, the style, the rims, the amount of tint, you look inside, the color, all that is your 4 Ps. But I say, Jack, if your car only had a little 4-cylinder engine, or if it had, like a lawnmower engine, let's say, how responsive would it be? How dependable would it be? We need to recognize that your people are the engine and drivetrain of that operation. They're more important. And today, that's what they're starting to see. How many BSCs or distribution you got, like Dirk is talking about, the biggest challenge is going to be finding and developing to keep employees. And if you're not able to do that, how could you sustain your operation? You're not going to be, never mind growing, you may have to shrink your operation because you're not able to keep. And then the other part of that is differentiation. You're not going to, if I'm running a distribution company or a manufacturer sales force or BSC, the differentiation is the quality of your people.
Yeah.
That's what it is. So if I'm able to find better people, and if I'm able to get them more engaged, more motivated, more empowered, that's going to be a huge differentiation, and it's going to impact the results. But what's now more important, who does that? Who creates that workplace culture or not? Leadership.
Yeah, leadership from the top. Yes.
And then so now because they're the ones that either say we're going to have that workplace culture of high levels of engagement, empowerment, motivation, satisfaction. They're making all the key decisions, and they're the fuel to that car. So the leaders are that fuel, and they're the driver. So they're more important in that particular car. So in this, all I do is I've had enough experience. I've now compiled like about 140 plus considerations what the best in class cleaning operations do. So as an example, are they using a single compartment bucket, or are they using a dual compartment bucket? So so they're no double dipping, or are they using mini scrubbers and auto scrubbers when they're cleaning those applications? They all clean to some degree, but I'll argue that a lot of cleaning operations are polluting in their mind. Oh yeah, I'm cleaning, but they got this dirty solution. They go in the bathroom. They spread all this dirty water around. They say, yeah, I'm clean. No, you're polluting. So my sweet spot again, Jack, sorry, long-winded, is help in-house operations, the leaders of that, or BSCs, to learn those 140 different considerations in the 4 Ps, people and leadership. What do the best in class do? Then I give them a worksheet that they could go in and look under the hood of their own operation, assess for themselves. Here's how we compare. We're as good. We're not as good. Man, this is not even developed. And when they're done, they may find that, hey, there's 20 things that are priority. Our specific resources, objectives, et cetera, dictate that these are the top 20. Then I work with them how to develop that improvement plan. So again, to learn, assess, and then develop an improvement plan. And my argument is that if they're not doing that, if they're not driving that continuous improvement as an in-house cleaning operation, guess what? Eventually they may be disrupted. They'll put that out to a BSC, or that BSC, if you're not able to learn and be providing as great value. And that's really, it comes down to your 4 Ps are driving your effectiveness, efficiency, productivity, consistency of the results. But you really then say, if I can't find good people, and then the leaders with that workplace culture, how do I put all that together so I won't be the one that disrupted? So with that, they take the course, they get the material. That's my sweet spot right now.
That's beautiful. I love that. Let me ask you though, like, because everything you're talking about is great, because I think, I use the 4 Ps as well: the people, products, processes. I throw perceptions in there because I think perception's reality in a lot of cases. But how do you deal with, Mike, I'll just ask you, how do you deal with, because not every company has great leaders, right? So you've got to take what you've got and make them great leaders. And again, sometimes owners are not great leaders. Sometimes owners are great leaders. But how do you take, I guess you start from the top and kind of work your way throughout the organization, but how do you take an owner that maybe not the greatest leader and flip that around to say, listen, here's the deficiencies, but you got to respectfully maybe say you're not the right leader. But how would you tackle a problem like that? Because I've met a lot of companies that have great people in them, but not great leaders. But you can see within the ranks, there are some leaders in there, but they're just not in the right seat, if that makes any sense. And have you seen that often, or do you run into that a lot?
There was an interview with Carl Icahn, the great investor, and he made a statement that he said, majority of companies in the United States have poor leaders.
Mm-hmm.
So if you think of that, all these companies, we think they're so great. And if he's saying that they've got poor leaders, and he says, that's where we decide. If we see a company with great leadership, guess what? We don't do a takeover of them. They're providing enough value. It's those ones with weak leadership that we will go in. And you say now within the cleaning industry, that is sometimes the problem. So if it's in-house, so you got a school district, you got a college, a great guy or great gal, been around for 20 years.
It's the tenure. It's the tenure. Yeah.
And they made him or her a manager, but they could control things, but they're not that leadership and that's what's needed today. 20 years ago, being an effective manager is that like a dictator. You'll do it my way. As you don't like it, out you go. And people say, I'm not going to leave because I need to get this money for my kids. Today, they're not going to put up with it. So it goes back to what we said earlier. You can't treat people the way you have been treated or would like to be treated or think is good to treat, or even your company. And some people say, well, that's the way our company organizes. That's not good enough. You got to treat people the way they want. So the point is that with the companies, that they need to understand that, you said earlier, that diversity, nobody is smart in everything. So you sit there and say, okay, I know typically, they may know operations or they know the marketing. You got to figure out what don't you know? What aren't you comfortable? And that's where you got to hire those skills for the opportunity. Because if you want to be not, in the business, but be managing, be managing the business, if you have a company that if something happened to Mike or happened to Jack, that BSC disrupts, well, who's going to buy the company? So you want to identify that we need to have a diversity of skills and experiences and hire for that. The biggest thing, Jack, is attitudes, traits that if you don't have the right personality, and sometimes if you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink, so if you have somebody that doesn't have that right attitude, it's going to be hard for them to accept the fact that they need to change as a leader. Fortunately, most people aren't that way. Most people say, I want to be successful. I recognize my weaknesses. Yeah, I'm willing to put that self-discipline and get in the diversity of skills. So then you look at, on the leadership side, what are some of those skills required? So it's effective listening. It's effective communications. So those skills can be taught. So if you have the right attitude that you really want to be a giving person, not to be served, but to serve others, I think that's the biggest attitude required of a leader. I am here to help you, Jack. I'm here to develop my people. I'm here to make you better. And if you really have that attitude and traits, you can learn, and a desire to learn, ability to learn, clearly, that as long as they have those things, the right attitude, and there's others, but the ability to learn, desire to learn, you could teach them the other skills, how to lead more effectively, how to communicate more effectively, how to build better teams, etc. The flip side is on hiring cleaners. You see it all the time. The olden days, somebody comes in, they put a mirror under their nose. If there's any steam there, you're hired. All right, there's a mop, there's a bucket, go start. Or they hire for experience. Oh, Jack, so you cleaned at, Mike's place. Yeah, I was a cleaner there for 5 years. Good, you know your stuff, go and clean. And the days of hiring on skills and experience should be over. Like, you need to hire for attitude.
I love that.
And you're seeing some of the organizations, so, that cleaner, if they come in there, Jack, with the ability and desire to learn, I could teach them how to use a mop or an auto scrubber, et cetera. But if they fundamentally do not have the ability or don't have the desire to learn, that's a bad hire.
Yeah.
The other thing is personality. Do they fit into the company culture? They may be a great person, but if they have to work with Jack, and you could tell that Jack and that Mike are going to be like oil and water, you don't bring Mike on board because it's going to affect that whole relationship. So that's attitude, that's personality. Your company should have a North Star. These are our core values, et cetera. Do they really believe them, living them, or is it a facade? The other thing is motivation. There's only 3 intrinsic motivators to people. It's a job, it's a pay. So if you come, they say, Jack, what's my dollar per hour? What's my benefits like? How much time vacation I get? They're motivated by the job, by the pay. That's okay, as long as you give it to them. So you understand what motivates them. You need to feed that to them. Or it's a career that they say, yeah, I just want that VP title and give me a credit card and a car. I'm happy. Doesn't matter really what. So they're motivated by a career. But what you really want to hire on frontline cleaners, it's a calling. They want to serve. Why do people join the military, the police, or fire departments? They want to give back to the local community. So there's people out there that want to serve. They have this intrinsic value that they want to serve. And then so they want to serve. They got the ability to learn, desire to learn. They have this outgoing personality. You could teach them all the required skills to be a great cleaner and a great employee. You hire the right people, you're going to be able to get them productive faster, and you're going to have higher retention rates. There's tons of studies that bears that out.
Yeah, that's a good point, because you to your point, you stick a mirror on them. If you get some kind of steam coming out of their nose, you hire them, and it's basically, for most hires I've seen do that. It's just a countdown of when they're going to quit, because they will quit at some point. Because to your point, you're not satisfying that need. I do find it interesting though as well, Mike, and this is a dynamic that, our business is getting a little sexier, a little more, I wouldn't say complex, but a little more appealing to people entering, is that the days of, running a mop are not what they were. We've got the, floor scrubbers that now do 25,000 square feet an hour, ride on, push behind, walk behind, and robotics are coming along. So the skill set should start to eventually change as well. I met a contractor here a few months ago, and he cleans a lot of, I guess, Class B buildings, and he usually sends 2 or 3 people in. And most accounts, he said he sends 2 in. One's a supervisor, they do QA, and I want to talk about QA in a minute with you, but he sends them in, the 2 people in, and one's vacuuming most of the night, the other one's doing the detail cleaning. But he said, Jack, with this robotics now, these autonomous units, I can send one person in, start the robot on the autonomous unit, and I'm basically treating that robot or that autonomous unit as an FTE. And he goes, I'm charging them at the same rate, and they never call in sick. The one person they're working with them may be a little lonely, but he's running 2 FTEs for the price of basically 1. And I guess, are you leaning into that technology? Are you leaning into kind of how do you kind of merge, and not to be an Elon Musk, but how do you merge the technology with personnel so that you kind of get this better than 2 result when you merge those 2 together?
A great point, and you have to.
Yeah.
You have to, Jack, and that's what we talked about, those 4 Ps. If you're not always looking out, and doesn't, robots 5 years ago are not the same robots of today, and they make sense in certain spots, and they don't make sense. So you really got to understand your business and say, okay, but you got to be out there looking at it, exploring it, having those discussions for all technology. That's where you need to start. Start it today. And when you go back to the people, if you hire the right people, ability to learn, desire to learn. If you get somebody that says, oh, no, I graduated from school 30 years ago, I don't want to learn, then you're not going to be able to teach them that robotic stuff. So critical, goes back to saying, hire for the right attitudes and traits, and you can teach them the skills. And the other thing is that you don't hire necessarily just for the skills. In any business that, they got an amount of employees. There's certain people there that got skills that were more valuable 5-10 years ago. And they got a certain amount of people that got valuable skills today, but you really got to be looking to hire people with skills of today and tomorrow. So if I'm going to be hiring, that's really where I want to go. So it's all types of technologies. So it is robotics, and you've got the different types out there, let it be for, sweepers or auto scrubbers or vacs, etc. You want to be also looking for, something, simpler like electrostatic sprayers, Jack, when they first came out. How many people bought them, and then you walk into operation, they're now sitting in a closet, they're not using them, or when they are using them, they're using them incorrectly. You watch them, and they're either going way too fast, or they're way too far away or too close to the object. So clearly they just really weren't taught. And I went into classrooms and I touched the desk where they're using it's like glue on there.
Sticky.
So they don't understand is that even though the disinfectant, whatever they're going through electrostatic sprayer, it still requires that pre-clean. And depending on your disinfectant, it may require a clear water rinse. But if they're just going in there and, looking for visible soils and hitting with electrostatic sprayer, that's where you get that buildup of stickiness. So they're actually leaving it in worse. The point is there's a lot of technologies, and using it can drive greater consistency, greater effectiveness, greater efficiency, and greater productivity. And to your case with that, the robots as an example, you could say, guys, they're going to be more consistent than the employee. They're going to not be calling in sick, but it allows the workers to do more of the value add type position. So they're not just having mundane tasks and walking behind an auto scrubber or on an auto scrubber. They're doing that more value add tasks. And so you should be saying the same amount of labor, we could actually have higher levels of clean, safe, and healthy. Then it goes back to that personality. And that's what that I argue that, 15, 20 years ago, Jack, you walk in a hotel, you see a maid's cart. They'd have it blocked the entrance of the room. The maid would be in there, head down, just working away.
Mm-hmm.
You watch most maids today. You see them in the hallway. What do? Hi, how are you? Is there anything I could get for you? And so they're actually hiring for personnel. That's what I'm saying. We need to do that with our cleaners. My mother was in the hospital. My grandmother was in a long-term care home. You look at some of these cleaners, they're the personality of a doorknob. And it's simple that if I had that cleaner and you had one where it came in that says, hi, I just finished cleaning your room. Is there anything that I missed? Is there anything I need for you? And that's really goes back to that customer experience. We've got to think that, hey, the customer is saying, no, everything's great, but just a little bit of interaction. So all it means you hire a cleaner that actually has this, friendly, outgoing personality. They don't have to be a great orator like some of the politicians,
True.
but they've
Yeah.
got to be that outside. So you combine the right person.
Yeah.
Now and to what you said is we're hiring, getting people. Our industry has so much to offer, on the cleaning side. It's buildings always need to be clean. So we're almost, we're not going to have the same peaks and valleys. So we're somewhat recession proof.
Sure.
That we're doing something that's wholesome. We are actually helping save lives. And that's what I argue, that when you hire somebody, especially when you hire them to with their calling, you say, gosh, you're not a cleaner. I could get that robot to clean. What you're doing, you're helping save lives. You are just as important as doctors and paramedics and nurses in the hospital. They're sick, it's too late. You actually could help. You could break the transmission of those pathogens. So if they get it in their mindset that they have this calling to serve, and they come to work thinking that I am helping to save lives, I am helping to keep people safer and healthier. Even though I'm working at this university, these young kids, when they go and visit their grandparents in the old age home or, at home, they're not taking the pathogens from this school, this university back home. So it becomes that whole mindset.
Yep.
Then you say, well, I'm saving lives. I'm in this industry that's somewhat recession proof. So I could really be able to provide for my family. I'll be able to give steady income. It may not be the highest. I'm not going to be paid as much as, the Tesla president, but it's a good job. It's a wholesome job. And I could get development. Same thing within these operations. We just need to look at people and develop them. I've had BSCs, oh, Mike, how could we develop people? Because think outside the box. You're an entrepreneur. You'd say to somebody, listen, I could teach you these skills, and one day I hate you to leave, but one day you may leave and start your own BSC operation.
Yep.
We could work together as a subcontractor. Or if you're good, I can make you a trainer. And then I'll make you a project manager. When we want to bring on board people, you organize everything. You organize the onboarding, you organize the product, you organize how the training is going to go. I'll work with you, make you look good. I could teach you communication skills, written communication skills. There's so many things that we can actually develop. And again, it's not necessarily costly, but you just make it a mindset that we find the right people and we give them the right education on why they are important, what they do is important. We provide, effective training, not just, half a day trains and now go and clean. And we work and develop them as people. We're going to have better people, a better team, and that's going to impact the results. And that's going to be the levels of clean, safe, healthy at the lowest overall cost. I argue it'll drive down costs. The ones that are embracing technology, they're going to be able to lower their overall costs in the long run. And guess what? They're the ones that are going to survive. They're the ones that are going to say, I'm able to give my customers a better price and higher levels of clean.
I would
because
say
I'm using technology and embracing the people.
Absolutely. I think that not even survive, just thrive. I think a great perspective. And again, this is the services you offer. This is the kind of mindset shift that you think about. I had Daryl Hicks on last week, the guru on, I have his book around here somewhere.
Infection prevention. Yeah.
Yeah. For dummies. And, we kind of came up with a term together, ROL, return on life. People don't think about that one wipe in a hospital setting or even an educational setting or even an office setting. That one wipe could prevent somebody from getting a cold. That one wipe from a desk could prevent this pathogen from carrying over. So that was kind of a term we threw out and kind of chuckled about it. But let me ask you this. So you get the leadership kind of identifying where their blind spots are. Where are we good? Where are we bad? Right? You got that kind of lined out through your consulting, kind of your discussions, your discovery phase. You would then identify the kind of the path to get the organization as a whole, to your point, educated on what they need to know, kind of where are the gaps we need to kind of improve upon. Once you kind of put that in motion, there's that whole fact of, Mike doesn't just leave and, hey, good luck, guys. But how do you manage the outcomes? How do you measure that over time? This is where I think you and I've had some conversations before, but you really get passionate in my prior conversation with you, passionate about measuring the outcomes and really always incrementally improving is kind of the takeaway I got from you. But what is your advice, or what do you recommend once you get everything laid out and you have a path forward to kind of make sure that you're hitting those marks that you want to hit?
The analogy I use, Jack, is pretend you're a pilot of a 747 jumbo jet.
Hmm.
You get all these people, hundreds of people on the jet, and you're flying them from, United States to Europe. That pilot, if you go into that cockpit, what do you see? A dashboard with all these gauges and lights, etc. I mean, that's really what the leadership then needs to develop. It's not the spot off, just measure once and said, okay, well, it's to know what to measure. And so you have to have continuous measurement, recording, reporting, acting on. So as you, and so now let's say I'm looking indoor air quality. So I'm saying, okay, particulate matter is important to me. So I don't measure once, I have this dashboard that says, okay, here's my particulate matter, and it's getting higher and higher and higher. Oh, that's a concern of mine. What do I need to do? Well, maybe I change the filter. So let's move into a more effective filter, or put a coating on the filter, et cetera. Or maybe, when was the last time we actually cleaned the ductwork? And that's where we start. Guys, you should annually, it's so easy to do, inspect your HVAC system, but check that ductwork. So if you've got all this dust and fur bunnies inside the ductwork, that's what's being transmitted. And that's the most dangerous. It's not what our mask will capture. It's those smaller particulate matter that we actually will breathe in or breathe through a KN95 mask or N95 mask, and it gets into our lungs. So that's one. So we're going to measure particulate matter. What do we act on the data? We change filter, we change, et cetera. Now we look at what else we're looking, maybe total VOCs. So total VOCs are getting too high. Well, we need to get in some fresh air. So more air exchanges, or open up some windows, or maybe open up some doors and some fans. But the most important thing is not just to have evidence-based data, but it's got to be continuously measured, recorded, reported, acted on. That's management. So that's you're that pilot. You're looking at that dashboard. Yeah, that's just one. We talk about people and how important people are. But how many companies actually measure organizational health? The best in class do. So in today's technology, easy to put a monkey survey out there. So you're now saying, Jack, would you recommend this job to somebody else? So employee net promoter score. So that's one variable. So if you see our employee net promoter scores going down and down and down, that is a KPI that says, I am concerned. If my own employees are not promoting our company, where's that going to lead us? So is one. Then there's other variables that's easy to measure on positive attributes as well as negative attributes. I always argue you need to measure both on organizational health. You measure it on indoor air quality. You measure it on your cleaning results. But the key is, Jack, the pilot, you want it to be on auto control. So you're sitting there, and it could change by business. So different business could have different KPIs, but you're constantly monitoring it. And where there's concern, you act on it. Now, act on it sometimes could be, hey, I'm not happy with that clean result. I'm going to change that chemical. So it could still be a GP cleaner or heavy duty cleaner, but I'm going to now go to marketplace and try. I'll get the one for Spartan. I'll get the one from Diversity. I'll get the one from Enviro Solutions, et cetera. And I'm going to do side by side. I call them cleaning challenges. So, okay, guys, let's get that, Spartan product. We clean this area here, and right beside it, we'll use the other brand. All right, let's go and visually look at it, or get an ATP and check it. Hey, just by changing, and the best ones as I look at is neutral floor cleaners. Yeah. Some of them are not much more than water dyeing the fragrance. And the person says, I wonder why it doesn't clean very well. Because it is only water dyeing the fragrance. So now if you say, I'm going to enhance that by getting a high quality neutral floor cleaner, and you could measure that out, test it side by side, not at my facility, not this fancy sales guy telling you, but side by side, your floor, your soils, your load of soils, your equipment. I could use an auto scrubber or, a cotton string mop. But we just do that part with your neutral floor cleaner, that part with a new neutral floor cleaner, what are the results? So that's just something as simple. Same thing with microfibers, cloths. And so you test them out there. So the technology, I want microfiber cloths, but they're not all created equal. Yep. And that's really what that data is. So management is just saying, I'm concerned here. I could look at products. I could look at procedures, possibly look at, custodial hardware equipment. Well, I'm going to look at all those things and adjust that. So that's really where it becomes constant driving improvements in the results. And again, the results are consistency, effectiveness, productivity, efficiency, but it's also lowering overall costs. So some of the people argue, well, how could that cleaner clean at that rate? Well, sometimes it's because they lowballed it, but sometimes they're clean because they are better cleaning operation. They're able to get those results by using those technologies you said earlier, that they are finding good people. They only have one person. They don't need two people because they're augmenting that with robotics, et cetera.
I'll use your analogy too. I again, a lot of wealth here and knowledge here. So thank you for that. But I'll use your airplane analogy too. I'm really high right now on incremental improvement. Everybody thinks you have to, turn the boat quickly and make all these, major improvements. And I'll use your pilot analogy. And I heard this on another podcast, but if you get into a plane on LA and you're going to go to New York, and you change that path of that plane just 1 degree on that compass, you're flying to New York, you'll end up in DC. Think about that. That's what is that, about a 200, 300 mile difference. Right. But over time, that 1 little degree, and again, to your point, if we make a 1 degree change on our product, we make a 1 degree change on our process, we make a 1 degree change on our hiring practices, we make a 1 degree change on our leadership and how we go about the leadership. It may not be obvious in that first 3 months, 6 months, but what happens 3 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now? I think that's where the beauty kind of comes in. And I think everyone's so focused on seeing immediate impact. They need to look at, are those incremental improvements cumulative over time going to see the results they want to see? So
and it starts with this. It's the mindset, by having that run mindset and the discipline of focusing on one thing change, because and just in that one, you're not going to get immediate results, which, as you said, Jack, but over time, you are separating yourself. And this is like the difference between somebody that, that hits 330 and another batter that hits 230. It's not significant difference. You look at who won the Kentucky Derby, typically, they could win it just by a nose. It's all you need is those small little differences. And the other thing is that we've all been guilty of, we go to some great shows. We go to the ISSA show. We go and listen to these great, webinars or speakers at the various shows, or they listen into a great podcast, like Chasing Dirt podcast. And they sit there and they make their copious amounts of notes. They're all pumped up and say, yeah, that's a great idea. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do this. But most people are guilty of doing nothing.
Yeah.
They end up, They leave the convention or they leave the podcast and they get home next day as their world starts again. And again, they're not managing and leading the business. They're just, they're part of it's a job for them. So it's critical. So one of the modules that we speak on and what really differentiates, and it ties it to what you just said, we say, okay, when you're done, all these things, when you now assess your in-house operation or BSC on those 140 different things, how you compare to best in class, you'll know where you're as good, not as good, or is non-existent. But then it depends on your objectives, your resources, what you want to do. You now come up with your priority plan. So there's maybe, not going to be 140. There may be 5 things or 10 things or 20 things. But I sit down and say, Jack, here's how to get it done. Just get something done.
Yeah.
Because most people are going to get nothing. They're going to have all this information, but they're not going to drive change for different reasons. So get the mindset of discipline of change. So pick 1 or 2 things that are easy and relatively quick to do. Don't try to say it's my most difficult. You just want to get 1 or 2 things that's important to you and that's relatively easy and quick to do. Do it for 60 days. After 60 days, it becomes habitual. And then you can apply. Look at the success we've had. It's going to be ingrained. Holy man, Jack is serious. It's not a flavor of the month. We're doing it. And then now they're going to see the impact of those results. Jack, you were right. Those things did make it better, et cetera. Great. Let's go back and reevaluate what should be the next 1 or 2 things. So they may be a little bit more difficult, a little bit more harder to do or take more time to do, but you then implement a couple more. So it's really having that discipline of doing things one at a time, one step at a time. Eat that elephant one bite at a time, not just try to get all 20 things done instantly. And then as the situation changes, what may have been right, 6 months ago, the time has changed. The competitors, the marketplace, the pricing, who knows what is going to change. So you go back and say, okay, yeah, that was priority 5, but now it's priority 10. I got to bump up what was 15 to make that my new number 5 to get it done. So it's that constant adjustment of here's where we are, here's where we want to go, here's that roadmap. But as you said, we may get into town and have a detour, an unforeseen detour. We can't just, keep our head down. We're doing it. No, we have to readjust and re-navigate back to get us to, where we want to go, not just allow the business to take us where it wants to take us.
No, absolutely. And I think the beauty of these things too, of just, laying that roadmap out, what happens in these organizations, and you've seen it, these organizations who really don't work, they work on, this property here, we've got this problem, we're addressing it there. We'll do it over here. We'll do this. They're doing all these little small projects, but as they look at it as a team, I came from a sports background and I love sports in general, but the reality is you start to work on these things as an organization. Again, not as a project here, a project there, but as an organization. What starts to happen is it's kind of like UConn, I guess, won the national championship last night. And it's like a basketball, it's almost like, Mike, you and I start off playing basketball together. Guess what? I'm not going to know how you operate, how you work, but over time, I'm going to know how to pass that ball I'm going to know where you're going to be, if that makes any sense. I'm able to pass that ball to where I know you're going to be regardless, or football, whatever it may be. And I'm using the analogy because I think as companies embrace consultants like yourself and look at that, laying that roadmap out, the roadmap is important, but also that teamwork and how to work better as a collective group is key, because that's where you start to shift. Let's just say that someone hired you, 6 months from now, you're a little bit better. A year from now, you're a lot better as working as an organization. But what happens as you start to make those leaps and you break through the ceiling, right? You break through the ceiling to the next level and you start getting more complex opportunities, more complex or profitable opportunities. Your ability to move as an organization becomes that much more quickened. Quickened, that a word. You be quicker at making, adjustments, changes. And that's where I see the companies that really take it to the next level, is that you throw a challenge into them. It's not just, Bob and Pete getting together and saying, how we're going to solve this. This is an organization. How are we going to take advantage of this opportunity? And we're going to move into this market or move into this segment or whatever it may be. And that's where things, in my mind, get really kind of beautiful. But in the sense of running a business, is that collective unit moves as one now versus 20 different people doing 20 different things.
Right. No, it's you nailed it right there, Jack, is the importance of having an effective leadership team. So that is critical. And there's exercise you can do. There's skill sets that the most senior leaders develop. So great leadership teams typically just don't happen.
Yeah.
They are developed. And all the great leaders, when they develop their leadership team, it takes effort. So you got to, you want them to be working together. And sometimes they just may not want to work together, or you put and you don't want to give them the answer. You want them to work out the answer. That's sometimes, again, that discipline, keeping your mouth shut and just saying, no, you guys work out that answer. So you say, okay, we're going to put these two people together. So it's somebody from operations and maybe HR, and say, why are they together? Because you said, get to know each other, and they'll have something to offer. And you'd be surprised that they'll come up with something. Yeah, here's how we did it there. And if you're open and have this willingness to respect people, and if you go in there looking for the goal, and not saying, well, they're not going to be able to contribute because they're, operations or they're HR, what do they know? No, you got to go in there again with this mindset. And that's what effective leaders are, that they say, we have this problem, that I'm not going to prejudge the person. I'm not going to prejudge what they say. I want to listen with my eyes, my ears, my body language, and I want to ensure that I'm understanding, and I'll just ask great questions. So that is really what part of leadership is. You get those leadership skills as a leader, listening, communications, and basically digging for the best, but also is building that team. And the same thing goes on with your cleaners. And it's a different example. And I've seen it where they have people and they may be a good person. So your sports analogy, they're the superstar, but they don't fit in on the team.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they actually bring down the whole team that actually are demotivating, and they could be like a cancer. So that's really, it's important that you have the senior leadership team, but it's also important to have all your people willing to work and then that they look forward. If you do this, organization held on, and they actually are looking forward to their Fridays because they're going to be away from work and they're dreading Sunday nights because they know they got to go to work on Monday. That's a symptom that you got a problem in your organization. You want people to have this work-life balance, but they will say, you know what? I love what I do. I love who I work with. I love what we accomplish together. And some out there might be laughing and saying that's non-existent in a in-house cleaning operation or BSC or distribution, et cetera. And I challenge them, no, it does exist. It does exist. Maybe not in your organization because you've been doing things your own way for so long and you expect that's the only way of doing things. You're not willing to change your mindset. That if you don't change your mindset, you're not going to change what you do and how you do it. And that's the definition of insanity. You want different results, whatever they are. You're crying for different results, but you're only prepared to do what you've always been doing. So keep doing what you've always been doing. The best you're going to get is what you've always got. If you want something different, as outputs, you need to do something different as inputs. So that people side, so that doesn't matter if it's the leadership team, it just doesn't happen. You need to develop an effective leadership team. And at the people side, on the cleaning side, the frontline staff or whatever type of operation it is, like if it's in a warehouse, but distribution, you want the right people that actually work together as a team. And there's ways of doing that. Typically, hire the right attitudes and traits and personality that fits into that group, that fits into your company's culture, and you're going to be able to differentiate. And they're going to drive. They're empowered. They're engaged. They're going to be coming up with all those great ideas. No matter how smart you are as the leader of the company, if you've got 200 employees, you want 200 people coming there that really want to contribute and coming up with those ideas and know that they're welcome. They may not work, but that Jack and Mike or whoever listens to them and gives them and respects them enough that they're willing to continue to give those good ideas. People make the difference. It doesn't matter if it's frontline staff or your leadership, they make the difference. And as higher up in the organization you go, you could, those traits stay all the same, but then you could develop those skills because hopefully they got a greater ability to learn, a greater desire to learn, and greater access to the type of content that's out there, regardless of what they want to improve upon.
I love it, Mike. A lot of insight here, and you've been generous with your time. We're wrapping up here, but if someone listening to the podcast today would like to reach out to you and kind of start the first step, what's the best way to reach out to you? I'll put in the show notes anything you throw out, but what's the best way to reach out to you to kind of start a dialogue around, pulling together what you're talking about?
Well, either through LinkedIn, my LinkedIn, you can message me through LinkedIn. I do give a fairly, I think, accurate description on my background and then the experience. So they can read my background and then the experience on the consulting side or the education course side. Send me a LinkedIn message or the website, which is SawchukConsulting.com. And there's a contact area there. They could just book a 10-minute, get to know each other call, et cetera. But that's where I would say the easiest thing. Or they could get my phone number, I believe, on LinkedIn. They could just give a call. And if I'm able, I'll answer the phone. I'm very receptive to answering. If not, I will call them back. But LinkedIn messages, message through the website or a phone call will be more than happy to explore. There may be a fit and there may not be a fit, but I'm the type of guy, Jack, if I can't help them out, I'd say, listen, I'd love the opportunity to get to know. I can't really help you out for what your objectives are today, but here's a recommendation. I'd rather have you successful with someone else than frustrated with me down the road.
That's awesome, Mike. No, I think what you shared today is just a wealth of information. I can't say thank you enough. I think people who will take the time to listen to the podcast, I think there's a lot of gems in here to kind of start the conversation with you. So my sincere thanks for you taking time today to be on the podcast. I hope it's worth your hour. And I think there's some point down the road, I would love to talk to you a little more detail about certain other aspects of the whole HVAC. I think you and I are in both the same vein, but I would love to talk about more about HVAC and the opportunities for those in the business of cleaning to kind of start to pull that into the business units as well. Cause that's to your point, that's a trend that's not going to go backwards anytime soon. So we'll put that maybe on our to-do, but any final words before we kind of wrap up here?
No, again, thank you very much, Jack, for the opportunity. I think you're doing a great job with with both vehicles that you have, being the podcast and your group, and 'cause the industry is a great industry. There's a lot of great people, and unfortunately, the next 4 or 5 years, there's going to be winners and there's going to be losers that out there, and it's possible that everybody could be a winner if they just really embrace the change, embrace technology, embrace better leadership, really understand what's out there. And because if they don't grasp the need to become the best possible distribution partner or manufacturing partner or in-house cleaning or BSC, there's only one way to coast: downhill.
Yeah.
Relative to your competition, if they're driving those incrementals, you said those, 1% change, but year after year after year, that divide that is going to get larger and larger. They're going to be able to provide higher value, greater consistency, better results on that clean, healthy, and safe environment. So that's I'm willing to come on at any time. So thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for what you do, and sincerely, you do bring a lot of value. A lot of great. You mentioned Daryl Hicks. You had Jerry Bauer, and you've got Chris on there. You got a lot of great people, and people just need take the time to listen. And not everything's going to resonate with them, but if they're driving, they listen to your podcast. You got an hour drive. Figure out that one or two things. Not everything with the hour of whoever they just listened, but pick one or two things that resonated with them and implement that one or two things. It's as simple as it could be. So keep up the good work. And if I could ever come back, it'd be my pleasure and my honor.
Cool, Mike. I appreciate the time again, and wish you continued success. And we'll definitely be in touch. So thank you, sir.
Thanks, Jack.